final Power 4 preview for the Walk On Redshirts podcast. We got a special guest for this one, repeat SEC guest, Lance Barton from Always Talkin' Ball. If you guys aren't following them, you need to be. They're always putting on great content, and especially
they're always talking
ball.
They're
Always talking ball, and they've got their top 12 list that they love to rile everybody up on social media for.
Yeah, appreciate it, fellas. And yeah, you're not joking, man. Tyler, my co-host Tyler Noe came up with the idea, like, hey man, let's here in the office, let's do our top 12 offenses, defenses, and go through positions. And he made these graphics and we'll post them to social media, and had no idea that how much I'm going to say interest that it would rile up on social media, but it definitely did. But fellas,
I call them passionate fans.
There you go. Passionate fans. And we learned that we know ball, we don't know ball. And if your team wasn't on the list, then we hate your team and kind of hate your mother too while we're at it. And if your team wasn't just number one on the list, then we also hate your team.
Did you know that I didn't play? So I don't know ball. I have CTE, so I don't know ball.
Yeah, man, that sounds about right. But no,
somehow you have CTE from not playing football.
That's talent. That's talent. It just means more over there in the ACC. And I will say my favorite passionate fan comment on y'all's top 12 list are the ones that have something to say about, it being 12. Like, where's the 13? Where's 25? And it really says top 12.
Yep, exactly.
It's beautiful. Those are my favorite.
Agreed.
Well, also, if people don't realize, 12 makes sense because we're at a 12-team playoff.
That's exactly why we do it. That was also Tyler's idea when he released our rankings. He said, we're going to do a top 12 because we have a 12-team playoff. So I guess if they end up going to 16 or something like that, we'll have to change it up. But before we get
favorite comment on one of them was somebody was like, I can't believe this one is in the top 10 and they were number 11. You were like, well, they're not top 10.
Yeah. Exactly. But fellas, no, I'm excited to be here. Appreciate you guys having me on. Obviously, it was a blast last year doing this with you. Tyler and I obviously follow along with you guys and what you're doing, and have a ton of respect for both of you, and have a ton of respect for the content that you put out. So really appreciate you wanting me to join you here tonight.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We appreciate you coming. If y'all question Lance's 5-star listening kingdom, he left SEC country, deep in SEC country, Cabo, just to come do this podcast for the people. So this, it doesn't get more SEC than Cabo, Mexico. So thank you, Lance, for coming back from SEC country to talk SEC.
I appreciate it, man. Cabo is probably about as much SEC country as where I live now, which is in St. Louis, Missouri, which is considered SEC country now that Mizzou's in it. So I totally get it, bro.
Hey, do you know the SEC used to play a bowl game in Cuba against a team from Havana? That was 1940s. 1930s.
Is that what the War of Pigs is?
No, that was quite before the Bay of Pigs invasion. Yeah, I found that out recently, and I thought that was insane because you technically count that as a win when you played the University of Havana. That's why I think there needs to be a dead ball and live ball area, but that's a whole different offseason topic.
Jake, not that you need my advice for this because you absolutely crush it on Twitter for y'all's account, but you should probably tweet something out about that and get you about 100.
I'm pretty sure I have.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I have in the past because I think I found that and I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous.
I'll take it a step further. I think the winner of the SEC should play the best football team from England or the UK every single year, so that way we can just keep dominating them over and over and over again. And then we can have more days to celebrate, and it has to be played on the 4th of July. Could you imagine? Watch Joey Chestnut crush some glizzies, and then we turn on to watch Alabama just take it to Oxford. A bunch of turbo nerds who think they're going to play some ball in SEC country, and they have to come here. They have to come here and play in the SEC.
Well, that USA country pride down there in the deep South. Well, you know how that works down there. They would love that in that part of it.
They'd eat it up.
Yeah.
You said SEC champion or national champ because the SEC hasn't had a national champ in 2 years now. So
here we go. We're off. Now we're cooking.
We've rattled the cage. Now let's jump into it.
Let's start. Speaking of national champs, let's start talking about some contenders here because. Same thing we've done for the last couple of podcasts. We've done contenders, dark horses, and then each one of us at the end will pick a team that we think will outperform what we've got on here. And I think there's actually a team in the dark horses that's probably going to be controversial that we left out based off of what the people on Twitter say. But starting with the contenders, I think there's a very obvious one. We got to talk about Texas. Texas was preseason ranked number 1 by the coaches poll. Preseason number 1 in the walk-on Redshirts poll. Just saying that too. They got walk-on number 1 in the preseason poll for walk-on Redshirts. Arch Manning, we know everything that's everybody that is anybody that even was remotely near football, they know about Arch Manning. But there's also a lot of changes there on the offense. They only returned 3 starters on the offense. A couple of the big ones to me are losing both offensive tackles. Plus, they just lost a contender for their right tackle, who I'm blanking on his name, but it looks like he's going to be out for the year. Obviously, Matthew Golden goes in the first round. The defense, though, I think is where people are going to rely on. They're bringing back, I believe, 6 starters on defense and plenty of other contributors. Lance, what is your read on Texas this year? And do you think Arch is going to be everything people say he's going to be?
Well, I'll start with Arch there. I just don't know that he can. Like, he's going to have to be like 30 for 31 and 300 something yards passing and like win every game to live up to people's expectations that they have for him. But as far as do I think he's going to be really, I think the system that he's going to be playing in Sark's system is one of the most QB friendly systems you can play in to begin with. Sark is always going to lean on the run game and do the play action pass, and they want to be able to throw the ball down the field. They weren't able to do that as much with Ewers. Arch already, like, his yards per attempt and yards per completion is limited time that he has done. It was more than what Ewers was. And the burners that they've now got on the outside are more of the type of receivers that they want to be able to do that with, like a Ron Wingo, for example. But I think the Arch is going to be fine. I just think, you know how this works, man. Like, if, for example, if they go out and lose to Ohio State, who's defending national champs, and it's in the horseshoe, and he plays well, and they lose the game, they're still going to be saying, see, he's overrated, told you. Like, I just think this he's so polarizing that's probably going to be the case. But for me, dude, like, we also, our last version of our, top 12 that we did, we had Texas at number 1 at that time. And obviously we like what Arch, we think that he's going to bring for the offense and whatnot overall. But dude, it's just the team around him. Like Sark in Texas and Kirby Smart in Georgia, for far as overall talent acquisition and recruiting, transfer portal, whatever that may be, Sark in Texas has been as good as you can be in the last couple of years. They're the only team in the country that's been to back-to-back semifinals appearances the last 2 years. And they're just a couple of years ago, if you remember those 2 monsters that they had in the middle of that defense, Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. Yep. They lost those 2 guys. And last year, us and just about everybody that talked ball was talking about, like, I just don't know that Texas is going to be able to replace those 2 monsters up front. Not only did they replace them, they were better defensively last year than they were the previous year. And that's because of the talent acquisition and the players that they're bringing in from high school recruiting and supplementing through the transfer portal. And they're going to be doing that again.
Lance, I'll add to that too. Like, a part of that defense, the defense getting better. The biggest bugaboo that Texas had in that first semifinal when they had Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat was the pass defense was just atrocious.
Yep.
They go in, they get Andrew Makuba out of Clemson.
Yep.
And they bolster up that defensive backfield in Texas. Yeah, you're going to get a lot more sacks now because you've got dudes that can actually run with somebody. You can play some man-to-man. You can play some zone. And that just made that – you saw they were just missing a couple pieces here.
Yep.
I think it's going to be mirrored. I think we have a similar thing on offense. You talk about Matthew Golden being gone. You talk about Quinn Ewers being gone. Everybody's giving Quinn Ewers all this crap. He was good for what they needed him to be.
Yeah.
So Arch Manning can only go down from the expectations you had, just to add to that. But Jake and I have talked about this, and I know you and Tyler have talked about this too. All these big-time schools that were in the playoff last year, just about all of them, the biggest question mark is at the most important position.
Yep.
And yes, we've seen Arch in some big-time games, but the games he started was against Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, and I think UTSA.
I think there's only –
Yep.
Yeah.
Was it 3 or was it 2?
I thought he came in for UTSA.
We lost Jake. I think he did come in for cleanup at UTSA. But just to add to that, like when you're having to replace that dude, it's tough. However, the biggest thing that Arch has done, and especially in this climate of football, has stayed. He's stayed, and he sat behind Quinn Ewers, and he's learned a lot from him. He sat with Sark, and he's learned a lot from him. So it's not like we have some brand new toy that's coming in from some,
right.
John State University. He's not coming from Oxford after they see him play Alabama on the 4th of July, right? So it's not some random quarterback. It's a guy that's been there. So if the receivers can jump into place, if somebody can step up to replace a Matthew Golden, I think a Ryan Wingo can. I'm hearing a lot of really good things about Khalil Lockett, another freshman that they just got in there. I think he was a 5-star guy. The offense is going to be good enough. I think the defense is going to be even better than it was last year.
Yeah,
it starts with Simmons, and Colin Simmons, and it starts with Anthony Hill.
Yep.
Those two guys are the foundation of this defense. They return almost the entire defensive backfield, and then adding a Travis Shaw, a former 5-star out of North Carolina, who ended up going to UNC when Bill Belichick took over. He jumped over to Sark. Now you got a 6'5", 350-pound mammoth in the middle. I mean, I think the defense is going to be just fine.
Yeah, there's one question mark, and you talked about the defensive backfield, but losing Jahdae Barron obviously isn't ideal when you have the Thorpe Award winner. They're still going to be really good, but that is still a key replacement that you usually just don't have Thorpe Award winners just loaded up, ready to go in the cabinet that you're ready to pull the next one out. But I do think overall I agree, because of second-year Colin Simmons. I mean, Simmons was a freshman last year, and I forget what the number was, but he was like a double-digit sacks. You got to think that another year of growth, another year of development. I mean, he's going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger. I think he's going to be one of the best edge rushers in the country this coming year. He was already considered one of the best ones as a true freshman. You got to think he's only going to get better.
Yeah, man, I don't disagree. I think the best, we've talked about this in our show, the best edge rusher, like middle linebacker combo in the country is Anthony Hill Jr. and Colin Simmons. Overall, those two guys, along with Trey Moore, who transferred in last year from UTSA, he led the AAC in sacks the year before when he came to Texas. Obviously a little bit of a jump going and playing in the SEC, playing in the games that he was playing in with Texas. But Trey Moore, Colin Simmons, Ethan Burke, and the guys they brought into the transfer portal to bolster up the interior of that D line, I just think that they're going to be able to get after the quarterback about as well as any team in college football, no doubt. So I agree with you. I think that defense is going to be nasty. I mean, they put out really good defensive units 2 years in a row under Pete Kwiatkowski, the defensive coordinator there.
Jake, can you research this? He's talking about the UTSA guy, Trey Moore. I think I just read that he had 22.5 sacks last year.
No, he did not have.
At UTSA? How many sacks did he have?
2 years. Two years ago.
I don't know how many sacks he had in 1 year at UTSA. I don't think it was 22.5. But like, if it was,
he had 14 sacks. He probably had 22.5 tackles for loss, would be my guess. He had 18 tackles for loss, is what it says. He went 18 and 18. Last year he only had 10. But I know I've made this point, and I'm sure you guys have made it too, that you don't always know the jump you're going to get when you go from Group of 5 to Power 5, especially going to the SEC. It's not like you're suddenly playing the same competition. You're playing way better offensive lines, way better tight ends, way better guards.
Yep.
That it's not going to be as easy to get around them. You're playing better quarterbacks with better awareness as well. Like, it's not getting a sack it's almost like if you get 20 sacks at a Group of 5 program, expect that number to be cut in half. You're playing in the Power 5.
Yeah. And I think everyone has Texas doing really well. So Lance, I want to come at you from this angle. What has to happen for Texas not to return to the playoffs or not return to form, not be a 12-0, 11-1, 10-2 team?
Honestly, man, I think it's the schedule. Last year, they had the second easiest schedule in the SEC. Only Mizzou had an easier schedule than they did in the Southeastern Conference. And this year, I know they just flipped the schedules in the SEC. You just you play the same teams, but you just play them on road home, whatever it is this year. But the problem is, as I'm sure a team we're going to talk about here maybe in a little bit, but going to the Swamp now at Florida this year with a DJ Lagway-led Florida team, that's going to be a tough game. And that's in September. They obviously go on the road to play Ohio State, to play the Buckeyes. They have to play on the road in Athens. Those 3 road games are brutal. Those are 3 very tough places to play. Those are 3 really damn good football teams. And if DJ Lagway in Florida is the same team that they were at the end of last year when he was the main starter for that team and that defensive line was wreaking havoc for the Gators, I mean, you look at it, dude, Texas, it's not crazy to say that Texas could leave the month of September with 2 losses. That's not unheard of. Do I think that's going to happen? Not necessarily.
Florida second October 4th, just saying.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. October 4th. So they could be leaving like the first like 5 games of the year with 2 losses.
Well, and then the week after that's Oklahoma, and
right.
rivalry game right there.
Yep. I was getting
rivalry
the Red
game.
River game is obviously what it is. So like for things to go south for Texas, like they could still be a really good football team and one of the best teams in the country, but sitting there at 9-3 because of how tough their schedule is and some of these road games, and then the neutral site game with a really good Oklahoma, what we all think is probably going to be a really good Oklahoma team. So, I mean, I think we all agree. I don't personally have Texas going 8-4, 9-3 or something like that. But if you told me right now Texas goes 9-3, I don't think that's crazy by any means.
No, I don't think that's crazy by any means. But there's so many trap games in here. I don't want to call them trap games, but they're just difficult games that are not in Austin.
Yep.
And I don't see Texas going 12-0 because there are so many games that they're going. I think they're going to slip up. Like I think they're probably going to lose to Georgia. When I did my schedule, I had 4 teams at 10-2 in the SEC as the leaders. I don't know who makes the SEC championship out of that, but I think that it's going to be one of the years where the SEC just beats themselves up.
Yeah, I don't disagree, man. And like the best thing that Texas has going for them for their schedule, though, is they have a bye week before the game at Florida, and they have a bye week before the game at Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So again, it's Sark and Pete K and that whole coaching staff having extra time to prepare, like for those games, like obviously could help their chances on those games for obvious reasons. But yeah, I personally, as of right now, like I've got Texas around that 10-2 mark as well. Again, I don't see them going 9-3, but again, I don't think someone's crazy for saying if Texas goes 9-3. But I personally got them 10-2 right now.
I agree. Let's speed on over with Athens. Let's talk about Georgia.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, you know,
that one took me. That's pretty good.
You know, just get a little speeding ticket on the way. Obviously, new quarterback once again. We've got Gunnar Stockton starting. Hopefully, wide receivers that aren't leading the league in drops. That's one thing I think Carson Beck got a lot of heat for last year was overall. But when you have receivers that are believed dropped, I think it was like 70 passes last year. It was some
led the entire nation in drops.
If you're gonna be good, be great. If you're gonna be good, be great at it. You know.
Yeah.
If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, be consistent. If you're going to be, at least you're consistent.
That's right.
So, Aeneas Smith is obviously off to the NFL. Gunnar Stockton is starting. They bring in, I'm blanking on the running back's name from Illinois. Why am I blanking on his name? But I know they brought in a running back over from Illinois. Defense is still going to be defense. Yeah, McCray. Defense is still going to be defense. You could go in and not know a single player on this Georgia defense and probably still assume they're going to be a top 10, top 15 defense. Am I right there, Lance?
100%, man. As long as Kirby Smart's the head coach there. I mean, Glenn Schumann's been there for a while too with him. I mean, they brought T-Rob in that was at Alabama before that. He was a defensive coordinator in the past too. So they've literally got 3 guys that have been high-level SEC defensive coordinators all on that same defensive coaching staff. But like Georgia's got arguably – like there's a couple of teams that can make this argument. They've got arguably the best inside linebacker duo like in the country this year. They've still got dudes along that defensive line. Is it the defensive line that we saw in 2021 that, you know, had Jalen Carter and some of those other just like monsters that were along that defensive front? No, but they're still really freaking good and former high-level 4 stars and 5 stars themselves. They lost Malachi Starks in the secondary, but again, like the guys that they're going to have stepping in and playing are former 5 stars, like number 1 overall players at their positions.
Well, KJ Bolden's still there. So
exactly. Exactly. KJ Bolden was literally the 5-star number 1 overall safety. Like, and one of those other inside linebackers that I'm not even talking about that's part of the duo was the former number 1 overall inside linebacker in the country coming out of high school. So, I mean, they've got plenty of dudes there. It's just last year, Georgia's issue last year was just as much like, is this inconsistent all the way around? The drops that you mentioned, the offensive line, so many injuries, crazy amounts of injuries along that offensive line. Like whoever actually does these crazy analytics for college football, like they come up with this like continuity like the most continuity like all year long. And like Georgia was like ranked 90th in the country for offensive line continuity because of how many different guys had to start so many different games for them. And it showed. Like, we're not used to watching Kirby Smart Georgia teams honestly get punked in certain moments, like they did against Notre Dame, like they did against Ole Miss last year. Like, Georgia may get beat, but they don't get just like ran over, like physically whipped. And
if you want to see, if you want to see like their entire season perfectly summarized, go watch the Alabama game last year.
Yeah.
Watch them get just their teeth punched, knocked to the floor, drooling on the ground, wake up, and then they act like they're the best team in the world.
Yep.
I mean, you watch them play Clemson, and the first half they looked awful offensively.
Yep.
And all of a sudden they wake up and they take advantage of some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You watch them play Kentucky. They looked terrible the entire game until the final drive. You watch, like I said, Alabama, terrible the first half. Carson Beck looked like he was finally going to be that first round draft pick. I remember I was at the Clemson Stanford game, and Lance, you were blowing my DMs up. I was loving it because you're like, you're right about Carson Beck. You told us. And I was like, I know. And then I didn't get anything the second half. Like, maybe something else happened. I was like, no.
Tyler was sending me screenshots. Tyler sending me screenshots of you messaging him going, is anybody checked on Lance? Is he still alive right now? He said, I haven't heard from him since like whatever time it was or whatever like that. But yeah, no, man, but you're right, dude. The inconsistencies throughout the year and even in games, like during the middle of games, like and stuff, it was crazy. So I think that like that is something obviously that like Kirby, and he's even talked about it in some of his interviews this offseason, that Kirby wants to see this more consistency and obviously needs to stay healthy with this bunch. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say this too. I'm sure y'all have. Like, I mean, I just feel like that this team is a more like blue collar type, like Kirby Smart type of team, like that he wants, including Gunnar Stockton. I mean, Beck's running around, riding around in a Lamborghini, and Stockton's running around in like a old, broken down looking like Ford, like single cab truck that he's from like. He's from Tiger, Georgia, like the mountains and like, the mountains areas of Georgia. Like
dip stains on his passenger seat.
There you go. There you go. But I just think that this is more of a Kirby Smart like type Georgia team overall. And I think they address, like you talked about the receivers, Jake, like bringing in a Zachariah Branch, bringing in a Noah Thomas from Texas A&M, having a Colby Young, who stopped me if you've heard this before, who had legal issues last year and missed a lot of time. And when they brought him in from Miami originally, like he was supposed to be like their dude at the X receiver position, and they weren't able to do that. So they had to play a guy that normally plays the slot, like Dylan Bell, had to move him out to the X wide receiver position. Now they're going to be able to play people where they want to be able to play them because of what they've added there at the receiver position. And Will, like you saw Nate Frazier in that second half as a true freshman in that Clemson game. Like, I mean, he's got all the ability in the world. I mean, there's a reason why he's the number 2 running back in the country coming out of high school, out of modern day in California.
And think about this. So he better show up, because last year, how the heck was Georgia in the bottom 100 in running rush offense?
104th in the freaking country in rush offense, bro.
Could not run the freaking football. Yep. And you had guys like Nate Frazier back there, and you just wonder what is happening. I mean, obviously it has a lot to do with the injuries on the offensive line, but if they can stay healthy, yes, I saw what Nate Frazier could do firsthand. 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds can make you cry on a Saturday. They can make a grown man cry when you've been waiting all summer and you've been running to lip, and then you got to watch a freaking 18-year-old just go there and just punk your team. Yes, I saw what Nate Frazier can do. He has the potential to be the next dude.
Yeah.
I don't want to say Nick Chubb because he doesn't have the same style, but a Sony Michel, not a Todd Gurley, but maybe a Nick Marshall, I believe or Keith Marshall. Keith Marshall was the other one. Like a Keith Marshall kind of guy who can receive, who can run the ball, who's fast, who can almost do it all. So I think Nate Frazier is the next dude. But if Georgia wants to take this step forward, they need Zachariah Branch to be consistent. And I think his biggest minus coming from USC, he would blow you up, make an extremely amazing play, Sports Center top 10 play, and then the next game is like, hey, did he not dress out? Like, is he in trouble? Where is he? Where'd you go? So we need Zachariah Branch to come and be Zachariah Branch. He doesn't have to make a top 10 play every week. He just needs to make that first down. He needs to convert third down. He needs to be the guy in the slot that if Oscar Delpa isn't there or one of the tight ends that Gunnar Stockton can work on, and if it's third and long, 3rd and 5, they don't have to run the football and they can get it out to him.
Yep, I agree 100%.
The running game just being anemic last year was something we were not used to with Georgia. I mean, for the last 10 years or so, we've been used to every year just Georgia not necessarily turning out a first-round running back, but you look at the guy and be like, yeah, he's going to play in the NFL. Like, he's going to get drafted after the year. And they had guys that were basically waiting in the wing. They built a culture there of like, yeah, don't expect to play as your freshman year, but you'll start getting carries your second year. Junior, senior year, you're going to be the guy. You're going to be in that rotation, getting 10, 11, 12 touches a game with 2 other guys. But last year, I mean, they had less than 2,000 yards rushing total, which was strange for a Georgia team. Averaged less than 130 yards rushing per game last year, which it doesn't take a lot to average more than 150 yards a game, especially when you have a couple usually easy games where you run for well over 200, when you've got 2 or 3 games that you're going to win. But they just could not run the ball. And I mean, we saw it in the key moments. I mean, Notre Dame, they struggled. They couldn't get the ball going. And obviously Gunnar Stockton was trying to throw the ball to guys who can't catch the ball. It just seems like everywhere that they could fail last year, they did. It just seems like all the seams broke. Which
is wild to say, Jake. Like, I agree with you 100%. And they still somehow found a freaking way to win the SEC.
Oh, I know.
With that. Like, that's what's so scary.
Worst case scenario, you still win the SEC.
Well, that's what's so scary about this bunch, man. With Kirby and this coaching staff, it's like they lead the nation in drives, 102nd and run. They got injuries all over the freaking place on both sides of the ball. Had the number 1 ranked strength of schedule in college football and still find a way to win the SEC. And they're standing there in a 4th quarter battle in the quarterfinals in the Sugar Bowl.
Well, this is why we're talking about them as the second team in the SEC. It's the defense. When your defense is that good, you're going to be in every single game, and your offense can mess up. And that's why when you have a game like Alabama where that team just jumps on you like they did, they're not going to win that game. And I think it's going to be similar this year. They're not going to win that game. If a team gets out 14 points, 10 points ahead of them, it's going to be really hard for them to get ahead. But good luck getting up that big. Good luck, because their defense is going to be suffocating again.
I'm curious where you guys have. I mean, I know I'm the guest here, but I want to save mine for after you. I'm curious, where do y'all have them on the schedule, as far as like their record this year? What do you think?
Alabama or Georgia?
Georgia.
9-3, 6-2 in the SEC.
What was that? Sorry.
Go ahead, Jake.
I have them 10-2. I have them losing 1 game in the SEC. I have them losing to Georgia Tech at the end. I think Georgia Tech's going to get them back this year.
Okay, Brent Keys boys. Okay.
I have them losing to Georgia Tech as well. I have them 9-3 going 6-2. And just to talk about the little ACC for a second, Georgia Tech took them to 8 overtimes last year, and I don't think Georgia got better. I think they're staying about the same, and I think Georgia Tech got better. So I mean, if Georgia Tech's going to do it, it's going to be this year. But anyway. 9-3, 6-2. I've got Georgia losing to Alabama. I've got them losing to Texas and Georgia Tech.
Yeah, they're one of the main teams in all of college football that I'm currently flirting with 11-1. I just think that schedules are so hard for all these teams now. 10-2 and 11-1 is what I'm looking at right now. I just like the fact that they get Texas in Athens, they get Alabama in Athens. Tennessee's only lost 1 home game in the last 3 years, and that happened to be to Georgia 2 years ago. That's and with Tennessee kind of being like, we don't really know exactly what they're going to be. Georgia gets them early in the year, which is probably a good thing, because whoever Tennessee is going to be breaking in at quarterback, like, they're not going to be seasoned yet by that point of the year.
Or the old Steve Spurrier adage, it could be good for Tennessee, because if you want to play Georgia, you want to play them early in the year.
That's a good point.
Everybody's suspended.
That's a good point. A spot that I think is going to be just absolutely brutal for them is when they go on the road to Jordan-Hare to Auburn for a night game on October the 11th. That's not going to be an easy game. Georgia and Alabama always have trouble when they go there for those rivalry games. It's just always, even when Auburn's not any good and Georgia's really good and Bama's really good, that's just tough games there. But I've currently got Georgia in that 10-2, 11-1 range right now.
Wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me.
Let's talk about the 17-year-old phenom who's now 18 years old.
He had a
In case
birthday?
you guys didn't know, in case you didn't know, Ryan Williams is going to be 18 years old this year. We're not going to have to hear about how he was 17. You know, did you know Kyler Murray was drafted by the Oakland A's as well? Just in case you didn't know that one as well.
I love it.
Alabama, though, common theme here, new quarterback. Ty Simpson is expected to start. The key playmakers at last year's Alabama team seemed like they were a lot of young guys. What was it? Xavier Brown. Am I saying, is that who I'm thinking of? Who had the game-winning interception against Georgia last year for
Xavier Brown? He was true
Yeah.
freshman. He was the top corner in the country coming out of high school, out of California.
So for me, when I look at Alabama, it's yes, there's a lot of new pieces, but there was also a lot of young pieces that played last year.
Yeah.
That now it's another year of experience. Like, you know, Ryan Williams, we all saw the phenomenal catch against Georgia, you know, the absolute highlight reel catch. But there were also games where, you know, he kind of didn't have as many catches. You know, maybe it's because, you know, Jalen Milroe didn't throw the ball as much. Maybe, you know, it's the inexperience. He's 17 years old. But I think this year we're going to see a step forward where, you know, we're going to see closer to that 1,000-yard mark. If he's not crossing that 1,000-yard mark, we're going to see these true freshmen that were playing last year taking a much bigger step, much bigger role. And I mean, for me, I've got Alabama in the playoffs this year. I don't think there's a reason why Alabama should not be in the college football playoffs this year. Lance, I'll let you go first as, you know, our Alabama former resident, and tell us why Kalen DeBoer is going to become Nick Saban 2.0.
I don't know about that, but I think on the offensive side, it all starts with the fact that he, you know, the Robin to his Batman is without a doubt Ron Grubb. When Alabama hired Kalen DeBoer, all Alabama fans and everybody for that matter thought that we were all getting the Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb experience and the duo there that's been together for literally forever. And after Kalen DeBoer's hired, Grubb, of course, becomes the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks and takes his longtime offensive line coach with him as well, and Scott Huff. So now Grubb is back at Alabama, and because he was there for about 2 weeks before he took the Seahawks job. I think that's huge because it sounded like that everything that you heard Alabama culturally, that like Kalen DeBoer is the definition of the good cop, and he missed the bad cop to his good cop, which is Ryan Grubb. He's definitely more of the intense, like has a presence about him. We'll let you know how it is real quick type guy. And I just think that was culturally something that I think Alabama needed on the offensive side of the ball. But overall, man, like they brought in a guy like Isaiah Horton, who's that bigger bodied, like contested catch type of guy, like the Roman Dunze that they had at Washington, you know, 6'4", 200-something pound type of receiver that can go up and get the rock down the field. We know that Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb want to try to attack you down the field in the vertical passing game. They're going to have the receivers to be able to do that now with an Isaiah Horton, with a Jeremy Bernard, who honestly, you were talking about that a minute ago, Jake, that Ron Williams, like his struggles a little bit last year down the stretch. I agree. Like really down the stretch last year in the back half of the season, like he wasn't as good as he was earlier in the year. Jeremy Bernard was their most consistent receiver down the back half of last year. He came from Washington with DeBoer. He was one of the few that did. Parker Brailsford, the center, was another one who started on that Joe Moore Award offensive line that Washington with DeBoer. But for me, I need to see more offense. I need to see the offensive line be more consistent, man. It's been 2 years in a row now where it's feast or famine with that bunch. Like example I'll give you, in Baton Rouge last year in Tiger Stadium at night, they ran all over LSU. I know like some other teams did too, but still, like they looked incredible. And then they go to Oklahoma and look like they literally can't get a first down. And it was a lot had to do with the offensive line play, and yes, the inconsistencies of Jalen Milroe. But with Ty Simpson, he's definitely more of the quarterback that fits this system more. And he's your natural thrower. He was a former 5-star coming out of high school. You talked a minute ago about Arch waiting his turn at Texas. Simpson's been sitting around waiting his turn. He got beat out by Milroe 2 years ago for the position. He didn't transfer. This past year, he had a lot of offers to transfer. He stayed. I'm as a fan, I'm excited for him for the opportunity he's going to get. They just need him to be the point guard. They just need him to be the guy that's going to distribute the football to receivers that are open and be more consistent than Milroe was. And I think they're also going to try to run the football a little more than what they did last year, because last year Milroe ran the ball more from the quarterback run game. I think they are going to hand like Simpson is a good athlete, by the way. He was a dual threat coming out of high school. He's a good athlete. He's just not Milroe athlete.
Right.
Go ahead.
And I feel like you get to fully unlock a Jam Miller, in this backfield, like you're saying. So if Ryan Williams doesn't have 1,000 yards, or if Isaiah Horton doesn't have 1,000 yards this year, I'll be shocked. I think with how the offense is going to shift, I would expect one of those two to be 1,000-yard receivers. I don't think it's going to be a Ryan Grubb Washington situation where you have like 45,000-yard receivers. But,
yeah, right. Don't disagree, man. Don't disagree. And to your point with Jam Miller, like the backup to him is Richard Young, who was the number 2 tailback.
Stud and a half. Yeah.
Number 2 tailback in the country coming out of high school. Bigger bodied, physical type guy. They've got another one, Daniel Hill, who they're really high on. That's a name that I've been telling people, like, is there a name that we don't know about yet at Alabama that like we should know? The coaching staff has been raving about Daniel Hill, high ranked 4-star, about 6'1", 230, big physical type back, but he can he's quick, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think that's one that they're going to be, they're going to have a stable of backs that they're going to utilize. But the thing I'm most excited about for this Bama team is the defense, man. Like, I think this defense is going to be nasty.
Alabama, a great defense. What?
Yeah, I think this defense.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah. I can't. This defense got better. Like, obviously, a game, kind of an inflection point of, I'll tell you, of the defense easily was the Vandy game.
Yeah,
like that Diego Pavia and that game plan that Vandy had. I mean, they had Bama like completely just off balance that entire game. After that game, Kane Womack's defense from the back half of the season for Alabama was fantastic. Like, they weren't the reason that Oklahoma like punked Bama in Norman. Like that.
They didn't throw 3 interceptions.
Exactly. That was
you can tell that Vandy was playing with them a little bit offensively. I mean, the 4th and 2 for Vandy to take a shot, that doesn't happen against an Alabama team. That doesn't happen. So the confidence they had in their game plan, it must have been phenomenal. What I love most about this Alabama team, which is I'm going to zag a little bit, you're talking about the defense, which is the normal stuff and the stuff we should talk about. But if I want to touch a point that probably not a lot of people are talking about, I think there's a lot of depth in that quarterback room, to the point where I think this might be one of the best quarterback rooms in the country. I mean, you have Keelan Russell, who's a 5-star. I think he was top 5 quarterback in the class last year. Austin Mack, who's a redshirt, who was in the running for the job for a little bit. And then you have obviously Ty Simpson, who's going to win the job. All 3 of those guys are phenomenal and could easily go start somewhere else. I mean, I think the depth, if something is to happen to Ty Simpson, whether it be injury or whether it be just production, it's not like Alabama goes, well, shit, now we have to run the ball every single play. Like they have people to turn to and hopefully can. I don't think Texas has that this year. I don't think Georgia has that this year. I think Alabama, if you talk about the top of this SEC, not my top, I have another team that we haven't mentioned yet, but the top of this SEC, they have the biggest crutch when it comes to depth. And honestly, I think they have the best playmakers. I think Ryan Williams is better than Ryan Wingo. I think Isaiah Horton is better than any of the other teams' number 2s. So if Alabama is going to come out, I would be less shocked for Alabama to go undefeated and Texas to have 3 losses than I would for the other way around. Even though I have Alabama losing 2 games, I did have a typo on my list, but 2 games. I wouldn't be shocked if Alabama could go undefeated, because you talk about the defense. So if you want Ty Simpson to have growing pains and make mistakes, you can do that when your defense is as good as they're going to be. I mean, LT Overton, I think he was a 5-star from Texas A&M. Hey, pinch me if you've heard someone say 5-star from defender from Texas A&M is transferred.
It's
Has
not
that happened before.
Yeah, there were plenty of 5-stars that on that side of the ball during the Jimbo era that they just for whatever reason
pick them if you want them.
Yeah, exactly, man. The defense, like the secondary is going to be, they're loaded. They brought like everybody, but Malachi Moore went to the NFL. But like last year when Keon Sabb was their best player in the secondary until he got injured last year. And then the exciting White comes in and Bray Hubbard and ends up being one of the best. Dude, what an incredible surprise.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never forget this. He comes in, and I had some buddies were sitting there watching the game, and they're like, "Bro, we're screwed." They're like, "We got a white boy now in here at safety."
You don't put those at defensive back.
Yeah, and dude, he balled, like
Yeah.
absolutely balled, to the point to where there's a lot of people putting him like having conversations about him being first team All SEC because of like how good he was last year down the stretch. I mean, when that defense was nasty in the back half of the season, he was playing during that time, like he was starting. So I know they lost Malachi Moore, but Keon Sabb's back from injury, and now they've got Bray Hubbard playing alongside him in both corners. You mentioned Xavier Brown earlier, Jake. He's back at one corner. Damani Jackson is back at the other corner. So I mean, they're stacked in the secondary. They brought in Cam Calhoun, a transfer from Utah, which we all know how Morgan Scalley's defense and Witt's defense is at Utah. They've got tough, hard-nosed type guys that are really good defenders. He was one of their best DBs last year, so he's providing some depth there. Just overall, like, I'm very excited about the defense. Obviously, I'm cautiously optimistic about Ty Simpson. I think he's going to be fine. I really do. Yeah. But I agree with you, Will, that if he's not, there could be a situation here where we see a situation like there was a former 5-star, number 1 quarterback in the country coming out of high school by the name of Blake Barnett that started a game against USC to start the season. He looked like a deer in headlights. And then they bring in this freshman quarterback from Texas by the name of Jalen Hurts, true freshman. He comes in and ends up starting. Keelan Russell, freshman quarterback from the state of Texas. Could end up happening. Last thing I want to mention to you is that everybody talks about Alabama with a quarterback, new starter. Like, what are they going to do with a new starter? Every single national championship that Nick Saban won at Alabama was with a first-year starter at quarterback. The only time it wasn't
when Tua took over
was I counted that. Well, like I counted that as a first-year like starter because like Tua, like they were not winning that game with Jalen Hurts. But so I counted that one. It was actually the back-to-back year when Alabama won it in 2011 and 2012. A.J. McCarron won it as his first-year starter in 2011, and then he was the starter again in 2012 when they won it. So every year, McElroy, A.J. McCarron, Jake Coker.
Don't talk about Jake Coker. Don't talk about Jake Coker.
Jake Coker might be the worst quarterback to ever win a national championship.
No, he was the GOAT. He was the GOAT. He's unstoppable.
Jake, he's Alabama, one of Alabama fans' favorite quarterback ever because he's a kid that grew up in Alabama that just dreamed of being an Alabama quarterback, and then he's like the normal guy off the side of the road that you just meet somewhere at a bar. Then he ended up getting a chance to play quarterback at Alabama, and out of nowhere, in 2 playoff games, the dude just lit it up against Clemson and Michigan State. But yeah, like Will said, like out of nowhere, the dude becomes just an elite quarterback in the playoffs that year. But my point is again, it's like this whole first-year quarterback thing is first-year starting, I think, is kind of getting blown out of proportion a little bit because Alabama has won multiple national titles with first-year quarterbacks. But I have right now Alabama, as of today, I've got them 10-2 on the year.
I have them there too. I look at the schedule, especially from September 27th through basically the end of the year. I mean, there are very few games where I go, I mean, there's games I think they're going to win. I think they're going to beat Vanderbilt. Like, I think they're going to beat Tennessee.
But they're not rollover. Like, it's not like, because you can't just discount Diego Pavia.
At Georgia, at Missouri. I mean, Tennessee, like, I think they'll win because there's a lot of questions there. At South Carolina, versus LSU, versus Oklahoma,
October.
At Auburn.
Tough to play in Willie B in October.
Bro, don't worry, man. When that schedule came out and I literally saw when that game was played, the first thing I did, I texted Tyler and I said, is Alabama going to be the Cocktober victim this year? There's one every year, man. There's one every year. Are we going to be the Cocktober victim this year?
Yep.
And I mean, and of course, opening the season at Florida State was absolutely god terrible.
Well, that's a loss.
Year.
That's a loss. Tommy Castellanos has let us know that is
yeah, but the dude hasn't eaten the dog poop yet, so like they're still cursed. So I mean, I think they're gonna win that.
Well, and you go back to the first year starting quarterback. If you want to get a first year starting quarterback into the league and get ready, the first 3 games and a bye week before you go to Georgia is Florida State, Louisiana Monroe, Wisconsin. Which Florida State and Wisconsin aren't pushovers by any means, but they're not tough Power 4 games. I mean,
Well,
there's a
Louisiana Monroe's a
very winnable-
pushover because their head coach is now an athletic director, so he's not even fully focused on football anymore.
They will be funded. They will be
And
very funded.
Ahmad Hardy's with Mizzou now.
That's right.
But I'm going to shock y'all with this. I've said this publicly, and I'll say it again. I actually think Bama's going to win the game. I actually think Florida State's going to play Alabama off their feet.
I agree.
Week 1.
No, see, Jake tries to do this to me too. You're not going to do this on this podcast, Lance. You're not going to reverse jinx. You're tied. Y'all don't need any more luck. You don't need anything extra. Don't come in here and do that. No.
Yeah. Well, let me explain just really quick. Explain that. I don't know that there's going to be a team that's honestly as hard to prepare for week 1 because of new offensive coordinator Gus Malzahn, new quarterback Tommy Castellanos, and we don't know what this offense is going to look like. I don't think it's going to be just Gus Malzahn's system.
They had to have blown it up. They had to
Yeah.
have blown it up from last year.
Yeah.
Last year was absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
So whatever you were doing, you think, okay, well, they're going to do the opposite of everything they did last year.
Yeah.
Well, I think the law of averages take over. You're not going to get undefeated, and you're not going to get 2-10. I think we're going to have a 7-5, 8-14. So you're not crazy.
8-4 is what I've got them at. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think
I think the amount of talent that is around Ty Simpson and that Tide group, it's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I think Bama's going to win. I actually think that Florida State just plays them a little off their feet. I don't think it's going to be just a total blowout. And that'll be one of the overreactions, by the way. Hot take. That'll be one of the overreactions after week 1 is that everybody be wondering what's wrong with Alabama and Kalen DeBoer because they played a 10-point game with Florida State, acting like they should have blown them out or something.
Can you put this on a quote card? That Lance is admitting that Florida State, Alabama will be the Florida State Georgia Tech game last year, or Florida State.
Oh, goodness.
I did not say that.
Quote card, please.
I remember my overreaction last year because DJU took Florida State straight down the field, scored on that first drive, and I go, maybe we should have put Florida State in the playoff. And then they were terrible. And Georgia Tech just absolutely milked that clock the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Last contender I want to talk about because we still got dark horses to get to. LSU here. So Lance and I both have LSU as contenders. Will does not.
I have another
Lance,
team. I think we should talk about.
No, that we'll get them later. So I think we both kind of agree with this. The offense here is going to be the reason. With Garrett Nussmeier, there's receivers.
Yeah.
One of the only teams, coincidentally, that has a established returning starter, like a guy who last year was the starter. I mean, you would look at some of these other programs, even Florida, DJ Lagway wasn't the starter all last year. A&M, Marcel Reed was not the starter all last year.
Yep.
Oklahoma, same thing. You've got guys who were not there. Garrett Nussmeier is considered one of the Heisman favorites straight up because of that reason. And he played pretty darn good last year, and he's got some pretty darn good receivers. The question is, the defense made improvements under why am I blanking on the defensive
Blake Baker
name?
Blake
Baker.
Yeah.
I was thinking Banks, but that's at Tennessee. Blake Baker, they made improvements. Can they make enough improvements? And can Brian Kelly stop being weird? That's still a major question.
Go ahead,
So,
Will.
both of y'all have them as contenders. I want to tell you why I don't. And it's, yes, the offense has everything on it except for the most important part besides the quarterback is the offensive line to me. And I see, you talk about continuity stat. I see such a glaring hole at that position. They could all end up being up great, and I look like a dumbass. I'm really good at doing that. But I'm looking at these starters, center, they have a transfer from Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Right guard, they have a transfer from Northwestern.
Yep.
Left guard, they got a guy who started last year. He was the center last year, and I might have them mixed up. And then the right tackle was the backup last year and started 2 games. So they're replacing 4 out of 5 starters.
Yep.
And one of those being Will Campbell. But yes, Aaron Anderson is going to be a freaking stud. Barian Brown, if I have to see him do this one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. Garrett Nussmeier can put the ball anywhere on the field with the flick of the wrist. He is phenomenal. It's like, by me saying they're not a contender, by no means am I disrespecting anybody that's a skill position player. I just don't know how they can hold up in the SEC when your biggest question mark is your offensive line. If you can't run the football consistently, and if you can't give Garrett Nussmeier some time, Barian Brown is a no-show because he's a speedster guy. So it's like, what are you going to do with that? So you're going to have to get very, very, very creative to get openings and get moved to be able to move the football. You're going to lose against those teams that are consistent. You're going to lose against those teams who don't turn the ball over. when they play Alabama, when they play Texas A&M, when they play South Carolina, and I think South Carolina's going to come in there with a chip on their shoulder, but Florida, Clemson, Oklahoma, all these teams that seem to have tough defensive lines, I think they're going to struggle with immensely.
Yeah, the what's crazy about the LSU offensive line is like they had dudes that obviously got drafted really high, and they were one of the best pass blocking offensive lines in the country last year. They couldn't run the football last year, and like Pick Six Previews, Brett Cianca does an incredible job. He actually listed in his write-up about LSU, it's kind of strange, like thinking about this offensive line, that one of the best pass blocking offensive lines in the country, but they were one of the worst run blocking offensive lines. Like their push rate and like when running backs were getting hit and things were one of the worst in the SEC last year. So like the center that they brought in from Virginia Tech, I know a little bit about him. He's really solid. The guard that they brought in from Northwestern was like one of the all Big Ten teams last year. I don't know if it was first, second, whatever it was solid for Northwestern last year. I agree with you that it's absolutely a question mark because of like losing a couple of the like high round draft picks that they lost. Is if they can just keep Nuss like somewhat clean, I just think that they're going to be like what I keep saying about this LSU team is I think they're for the first time in Brian Kelly's tenure there, they're going to play significantly more complementary football. Like they were so one-dimensional for the last 2 years. Like you think about it when Jaden Daniels was there, like that offense was him and those receivers. They couldn't run the football. The only running game was him running around. Defensively, they were booty as could be 2 years ago. And last year, they did improve under Blake Baker, but they still weren't like great defensively. They were better, but they still couldn't run the football until that freshman Caden Durham came in the back half of last season and started running the football well for them. Caden Durham, Caleb Jackson, and the number one overall running back in the country coming out of high school out of Louisiana, Harlan Berry. That's a three-headed monster they're going to have at tailback now that they feel really good about. The receivers, like you talked about, ridiculous. They're like 6 deep at the receiver position.
They really are.
Yeah, they've got dudes that have started at other Power 4 programs that are going to have a hard time getting on the field for them this year. And defensively, I do think they're going to finally be better as long as they can stay healthy. Like they need to be able to stay healthy. Getting Jack Pyburn from Florida, defensive end, getting Patrick Payton from Florida State. 2 years ago when Florida State went undefeated in the regular season and they had that nasty defensive line, Patrick Payton was one of their best pass rushers.
That was their war daddy. You're right.
Yeah.
Dominic McKinley's a stud in the inside.
Yep.
I really thought you were going to say, Lance, that they were going to unlock Harold Perkins, and I was about to end the podcast there. No, man. Honestly, though, he's the X factor, right, if you want to say it, because he is so athletic, and we saw what he did as a freshman. Do I think that, like, we haven't seen him since he's a true freshman be dominant? I have no idea. We obviously know what kind of talent he's got and potential that he's got. The only thing with him is, does the emergence of Whit Weeks last year, does it allow Perkins to be more see ball, get ball, and go do what they really want him to do? I don't know. I really don't. Like, I can't for the life of me figure out why that they have not just let him do exactly what he did as a true freshman. But either way, neither here nor there. I do think the defense is going to be better. And I just think that overall, they're going to play better complementary football, and it's not going to be just one-dimensional, relying on the quarterback throwing for 4,500 yards for them to have a chance to win games anymore, like they've done the last 2 years. I really think they should have let Harold Perkins kind of be like how Micah Parsons was at Penn State, kind of like a hybrid. I mean, he was a linebacker, but hybrid edge rusher. I mean, it was go find a way to get that quarterback. Like, how can you? And Micah Parsons was the best when he was just absolutely just running through, finding the gap, shooting the gap, and going and getting the quarterback. Whether he got to him or not, but at least forcing the pressure. I mean, that's when Parsons was the absolute best at Penn State.
And you think about the game against Arkansas on Thanksgiving with Perkins, and
when he had
they
3
just let
sacks.
him pin his ears back and go. And he had how many sacks?
He had 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles.
He was a one-man wrecking crew. Did that back half of that season last year 2 years ago for LSU, whatever that was, 3 years ago, whatever that was. But yeah, man, I'm interested to see what they do with him, because I do think that Whit Weeks and bringing in a Patrick Payton like they did may allow them to do what they really want to do with him. It's just a matter of, are they actually going to be smart enough to do that?
if that offensive line can play well, I'm gonna look like an idiot, and they might win the SEC.
Well, their schedules obviously. I mean, again, man. We talked about this on our one of our SEC preview shows, dude. Obviously, at Alabama's tough. I mean, South Carolina, like you mentioned, playing at Ole Miss is tough. They get Florida home, playing at Clemson. Like they've got some serious landmines in this schedule. But let's just say they figure out a way to get through the schedule, and they're sitting there at 9-2 on the year. Remember a team last year that was sitting there at 9-2 on the year, and then they went on the road to Norman, Oklahoma, and got their absolute cheeks clapped in Norman. And that was when Bama went in there and did that to Oklahoma last year. If LSU's sitting there at 9-2 at the end of the year, and on November the 29th in a cold night in Norman, Oklahoma, that could be an interesting game for LSU and have a lot riding on the table for Brian Kelly's career at LSU and just overall that football program in general. That's just something I've been kind of like looking at with this schedule and could easily see LSU sitting there in a situation like that. I've got LSU right now going 10-2. My compadre on the pod, old Tyler, disagrees with me on LSU with that, but I've got them going 10-2 as of right now.
I have them 10-2 as well. I have Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Texas all going 10-2. I think based off of what I remember, I think I have it being Georgia for sure making I think I have Georgia versus Texas in the SEC championship game because I know one of Georgia's losses is out of conference.
I've got our next team in the SEC.
Yeah. We'll move on to our dark horse, who Lance you just talked about, but somehow one of Will's contenders, and Will, have the floor. Tell me why Oklahoma's offensive line, that was one of the worst in the country last year, is suddenly going to lead Oklahoma to the SEC championship game.
So we're not going to start with offensive line. We'll get there, which is funny because
we talk so much about offensive line with every other program.
Funny. It's funny because I just went and attacked. I just attacked LSU and was like, they're not a contender because of the offensive line. But let's not worry about Oklahoma's offensive line. Let me tell you what the difference in Oklahoma and LSU is with the offensive line, since you want me to start there. Most of the guys are returning. So, yes, they struggled. But they're together. You look at Clemson's offensive line 2 years ago, it's the same exact crew that's coming out there for August 30th minus one guy. And they were awful 2 years ago. Awful. So you shift around the coach. You get some, exactly. So these guys are together, all together. They're playing again. So having that experience, having that suck, having that teach tape, you're going to find out who they are. I trust that more than replacing four guys. But that's neither here nor there. I want to talk about the defense. The defense only lost a great guy, Peyton Strussman. What was his last name?
But Bowman and his safety, and they lost Danny Stutzman, the middle linebacker.
Danny Stutzman. So you lose those two guys. They were a top 20 defense last year. You know what Brent Venables does extremely well? He coaches some freaking defense.
He's so good, bro.
I think the defense is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think it's going to be top 20 again.
Yep.
The biggest difference in this team is, number one, they don't have 6 receivers on the IR. And number two, they have a guy by the name of John Mateer coming down from Washington State with his offensive coordinator to come lead this team. And I am giraffe nuts high on John Mateer. I love John Mateer. I think he's going to be one of those guys. You know, we have one just about every year. We had Cam Ward last year, who also came from Washington State as a transfer and ends up being a really high draft pick, number 1 overall. I don't think John Mateer will be number 1 overall, but I think he could end up being a first-round draft pick after this year, after what we see. He's extremely talented. The way he anticipates throws is phenomenal. Yes, he was playing in the Pac-2 last year, but you can see some of the straights. It doesn't matter who you're throwing against. With defenders out there, if you're able to put the ball on the freaking money with defenders out there, I don't care what league they play for. That's really difficult to do. John Mateer can do it. John Mateer is athletic. He can run. So if you have this good defense, you have the first 3 games of their schedule, whatever you think about Michigan, whatever, it gives him time to get acclimated to this environment. I think also, I was about to go off on a different tangent. Let's go back to the offense a little bit. Jaden Ott. The entrance of Jaden Ott from Cal. So, yes, he was a phenomenal running back 2 years ago. Battled some injuries last year. Probably was going to be second, third round draft pick had he not gotten injured last year. transfer after saying he's going to stay at Cal, transfers to Oklahoma, and that backfield with Jaden Ott and John Mateer is going to be nasty. So you want to help an offensive line be better, have a playmaker at running back and let these guys lean on somebody a couple times. Pass blocking is how slow can you lose? You let them get out there and run block, get out there and get physical. It's going to help them a lot in the passing game. They could not run the football last year either.
Yep.
Jackson and Arnold couldn't throw the football, and they could not run the football. So could you chalk that up to the offensive line? Could y'all chalk that up to bad running backs? Who knows? We're going to find out this year with Jaden Knott because he's great. Now you got Deion Burks coming over from Purdue. I think he's really talented. We talked about this a couple weeks ago in our Big Ten preview. It's insane the amount of talent that Purdue had. And they suck.
We've done the same. We've done the same thing, bro. Yeah,
yeah. It's insane.
Dylan Thieneman. Yeah, like Deion Burks 2 years ago at Purdue.
Yeah, the tight end. I'm forgetting the tight end's name.
Max Clare.
Max Clare. Yep. Kansas State's talking about one of their top receivers, and you look at like there's a transfer, and you look up where he came from. Purdue.
It is absolutely insane. So all that to say is this Oklahoma team has a difficult schedule. They go to Temple. Really tough.
Watch out for the mouse.
But they play
Hashtag
Michigan at home.
Talk.
They play Auburn at home. Texas is obviously the rivalry game. You have to worry about that. They go to South Carolina. There's some Cocktober for you. They go to Alabama, but then they get LSU at home. So it's about 50-50 on the tough games, who's home, who's away. We'll find out by the Michigan game who this team is, and then maybe even the Auburn game. By the time we get to October, we'll know who this team is. And I think it's going to be a 10-2 team. I think it's a 10-2 team that's going to be playing in the SEC championship. And go ahead, clip that Opus Prime. Thank you very much. Clip this one right here. I'm going to tell you so I can post this out there, and I'm going to get called. I'm going to have CT again tomorrow, and I'm going to have all the other mental discrepancies that I've been accused of having.
Well, Will, I seriously, man, I don't think it's crazy to say that this Oklahoma team is absolutely talented enough and good enough and to do that for all the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, defensively, they're going to be absolutely nasty. You know this more than anybody. I mean, Brent Venables, in my humble opinion, is the best defensive coordinator of my lifetime that I watch, most consistent. And now that he is going to be calling this defense that is already as talented as it is, that defensive line is going to be nasty. They've got plenty of talent on the back end as well. I just think, again, like Jake mentioned earlier, like with the Georgia team, I'm not worried about them defensively as long as Kirby Smart's there. I'm not worried about Oklahoma now defensively, especially with Brent Venables calling it. I mean, obviously the question mark is the offensive line, but seriously, like Jake mentioned, like all the injuries that they had at the receiver position last year, like they're top five in their depth chart. They also had a ton of injuries along that offensive line last year, which had played a huge role too into why they couldn't run the football. Did y'all know that Jaden Knott, we talk about Jaden Knott getting injured last year. In our study of Fernando Mendoza, QB now at Indiana, we were talking about like how good I was watching like some film on him, and it made me go look up the stats on this because every single highlight that I saw of Mendoza, he was running for his freaking life, trying to make throws with like defensive linemen barreling down on him and hitting him, and he's running around running for his life. So I looked up to see like what was Cal's offensive line like last year. They were ranked 130th in the country last year in sacks given up and 131st in the country in tackles for a loss given up. There was only 133 teams in the country last year. So Jaden Knott went from also, he had Jake Spavital, his offensive coordinator 2 years ago, who was obviously at Baylor last year and turned Baylor into one of the top offenses in the country.
Coordinator Lance, he's back at it,
baby.
Right.
Ott goes to Oklahoma now, and he's going to be paired with a guy like Mateer. He's going to have weapons. They're going to have weapons on the outside at receiver, and Ben Arbuckle is a fantastic offensive coordinator. My question is obviously the offensive line. Can they be good enough? They don't have to be dominant, but can they be good enough? And what will Mateer's game translate to from Washington State to not only the SEC, but like a very tough schedule in the SEC and playing a defense like a Wink Martindale third game of the year? Like, he was incredible at Washington State. I agree. I'm very high on him too, Will. It's just hard to figure out, like, how's that going to translate against a nasty Wink Martindale Michigan defensive line? especially if your offensive line actually isn't very good. We don't know that yet.
Right.
But like me, I'm not too far off with you, bro. I'm 9-3, 8-4, and leaning more towards 9-3 personally. Like I think this Oklahoma bunch is going to be stingy this year.
Thank you. Solidarity. Go ahead, Jake.
I like the addition of Mateer and Jaden. I like I said at the beginning, I have concerns about the offensive line because of how bad they were. I think part of it also, there's a Jackson Arnold, there's a Michael Hawkins factor in there as well. You have much more of an experienced quarterback. I believe that when you have that experienced quarterback, you can also help prevent more sacks as well because you have smarter quarterbacks. You have quarterbacks that have the understanding, the awareness, and understand timing that you can't hold on to the ball for 5, 6, 7 seconds and not expect to get sacked. So I think with a little bit more experience, you're going to see that number drop automatically. That, like you said, though, the Wink Martindale thing, when you start playing some of these other teams, is the offensive line going to do enough, especially to help the running game and help Jade not, so he's not behind one of the absolute worst offensive lines again, because we know what Ott can do. Ott is a talented running back.
Yeah.
Agree. They don't need to be number one, in sacks allowed, but they need to not be last. They need to be, 50th. They need to be 40th. If they're in that range, all bets are off, and we will be able to see Oklahoma make a pretty significant improvement on the offensive side of the ball.
I agree.
Let's talk about, we got a couple other ones in here. Kind of want to move through these because we are already at an hour. Let's talk about South Carolina here because we got Lenora Sellers, and Lenora Sellers, I think there's a lot of people who view this. I almost want to talk about South Carolina and Florida as the same because I feel like there's a lot of comparisons there because when you talk about the quarterback position, I feel like Lagway and Lenora Sellers kind of get compared to a little bit because they are similar style quarterbacks. I feel like Lenora Sellers is a little bit more runner and Lagway's got a little bit better of an arm. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys can tell me.
No, you're. Yeah, I mean, Lagway was top 5 in the country last year in yards per attempt and yards per completion. So like he's definitely more of a downfield type passer, but Lagway also was hobbled a little bit last year with a hamstring injury. So like, I don't know that we really got to see his overall running ability yet, but Sellers is definitely, I agree, like more explosive of a type of a runner, no doubt.
So the thing that scares me about South Carolina, so I have them at 8-4, 5-3, and all that is because of Lenora Sellers. And I wouldn't be, but like in the same breath, and this isn't because I'm a Clemson guy, so I need to preface that, but I know I'm going to get called whatever.
Yeah. No matter what you say, they're going to call you out.
Right. But I also wouldn't be shocked if they're 6-6. And the biggest reason why was last year, South Carolina was able to stick around in games because they had a top 15 defense.
Yep.
They lose 7 guys off of that defense. They lost Nick Emanwar. They lost Tonka Hemingway. They lost Kyle Kennard. They lost DJ Knightley. Another guy, I'm forgetting, DQ Smith, I think. No, DQ Smith's still there. They lost a bunch.
Yeah.
They lost a lot on that defense. And I don't think, when you talk about an Alabama, when you talk about a Georgia losing all these guys, they've got guys coming in the range behind them. I don't know if South Carolina has that much of depth that they're able to compete like that. But I think the strength of this team shifts to the other side of the football. However, when you talk about the comparison with Florida's got 2 things that South Carolina does not. They have a proven receiver in Wilson. I'm forgetting his first name.
Trey Wilson.
Trey Wilson, and they have a proven receiver, running back in Ball, and I'm forgetting Ball's first name.
Jaden Ball.
Thank you. This is why we have him all. He's always talking Ball. So Jaden Ball is probably one of the best running backs in the SEC. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about him. But South Carolina has a huge question mark at running back, mostly because the guy they went to the transfer portal to get to come be their war daddy, their bell cow, and
still is not eligible.
Yeah, Russell
Faison not eligible, which I think is just it's just awful. It's just really awful. Like the NCAA, listen, if you're not going to let them play, tell them. Let's rip this freaking Band-Aid off. It shouldn't take this long to give a decision. Good, bad, and different. Make a freaking decision. But anyway, you have Lenora Sellers coming back. We don't know what's going to happen with Faison. The receiving group makes me question some things. And a lot of people say the South Carolina offensive line is going to be weak. I think it's actually going to end up being one of their strengths this year. Again, a lot of these guys are true freshmen. So they're now juniors. They've been playing together for a while. I think they're going to end up being pretty good. But my biggest question mark with this offense is the receivers. Nick Harbor has freaking Clydesdale hooves for hands. You go to the Alabama game and he played pretty good. He had the jump ball win that almost took him into overtime. And then Illinois, he looked pretty good against Illinois. But other than that, where are you? Mazio Bennett, I think, is a stud. He will be a true sophomore this year. They have a freshman that everyone's talking about that I'm forgetting his name. I'll come back to him. But one guy that I really want to focus on is Michael Smith, the tight end. I think he wears number 20, which is a really weird number for a tight end. The dude's a stud. There was clips going all around last year of him just dicing up Nick Emenware, who ended up being a second-round pick into the NFL as a true freshman tight end. One of the hardest positions to play in the NFL and in college is a tight end, especially your first year. You don't see true freshman tight end playing anywhere, and you don't see rookie tight ends doing much unless your name is Brock Bowers. But you take Brian Rowe is the receiver I'm thinking of, but there's so many question marks in the playmaker positions for the South Carolina team that makes me really question what they're going to do and how they're going to beat teams. I trust more on Lenora Sellers and his ability to pull the best out of those guys, which is why I have them going 8-4. But again, I wouldn't be shocked to see him 6-6. Sorry, I got long-winded.
No, you're good. Sellers is really like I've said this many times, he's the only quarterback in the country that I think that can take a team and just put them on his back and take over games like on his own because of his
LSU
credibility.
Look at LSU last year.
Yeah.
That's the perfect microcosm of what you're saying. Sorry, I cut you off, but
no, you're good. Yeah.
When he's in the game, they're winning by double digits. They took him out.
And again, I know you don't want me to bring this up. I got to like him running the like Clemson shut down South Carolina like everywhere except Sellers running the football. Like when all else failed, he just take off and run. And so like he has the ability to be able to do that. My problem with South Carolina is you mentioned the defense. I think that I still think they'll be solid, but I don't think they're going to be as good as what they were last year. But like my problem is the schedule, dude. Like,
it's brutal.
This schedule is like, I know that some of these other teams get talked about for having the toughest schedules in the country, whatever like that. But if you think about it, last year, Mizzou had them beat in Columbia. Like, I still don't know how Mizzou gave that game up and lost. They have to go to Mizzou. They have to go to LSU. They have to go to Ole Miss. They have to go to Texas A&M. Like, that's 4 brutal road games. And then your home games are, you have Clemson, you have Bama, and Oklahoma. Like, none of those are automatic wins. Like, I know Williams-Brice is a very brutal place to play, especially at night. So, I mean, right now I'm leaning 8-4. I could see 7-5. And the problem is I think they could be a team, like, you know, how every year everybody makes that like comment, like they're the best 7-5 team in the country. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, that could be them. And they could be a really good football team, but because they're playing these like this brutal schedule and playing like, I mean, we're sitting here talking about teams that we think are going to make the playoffs. I mean, there are multiple teams on this schedule that we all and a ton of other people are thinking are going to be in the playoffs. That's my problem with South Carolina this year. Not necessarily I think they're going to be bad. I just think there's too many roadblocks in this schedule.
They're 2024 Florida. I mean, look at Florida's schedule last year. It was brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. So everybody's like, oh, they suck. They suck. They're dog meat. But it's like, no,
Florida has
the schedule.
Florida's schedule this year is also not easy as well, because when you talk about the fact that Florida has to go to Miami, they have to play Texas. They have to play Texas A&M. They have to play Georgia. They got to play Ole Miss. They got to play Tennessee. And then who knows what Florida State is at the end of the year. I think it's easier than last year. I think the schedule actually ended up being a little bit easier last year, especially when you talk about at the beginning of the year, we all thought Florida State was going to be an absolute gauntlet, and then Florida State was absolutely terrible. But, you know, when you talk about Florida, for instance, that middle of the schedule right there, that Miami, Texas A&M, that's going to determine their whole season right there.
Yep.
If they can get through there with one loss, I mean, you're looking at a potential playoff team.
He literally at LSU, at Miami, back-to-back, and then in Texas A&M. That 4-game stretch is unreal.
Yeah. You have one game at home and it's versus Texas, but at LSU, at Miami, versus Texas, at A&M. If you get out of there with one loss somehow, you're a top 10 team because you have possibly 3 top 15 wins. I mean, top 20 probably, no later. Those are all top 25 teams right now.
Yeah.
And you're going to be a top 10 team guaranteed, and you just have to get through with just basically, if you lose to Georgia and you go 10-2, you're in because you have enough quality wins up there.
And I think the biggest difference with this Florida team in comparison to South Carolina, like when you were saying, like the comparison between the two teams, Jack, I think the biggest difference is the Florida along the offensive line, bringing back like 4 starters and 4 quality starters. And then their defensive line, when they had that 4-game stretch last year where they won their final 4 games of the season and beat LSU and they beat Ole Miss and ruined Ole Miss's playoff chances, and they spanked Florida State, won their bowl game. Dude, they had like 30-something tackles for a loss, and like it was like somewhere between 15, 18, 19 sacks during those 4 games. And it was Caleb Banks and Tyreek Sapp and guys that were wreaking havoc in the backfield for them. They're all back on that defensive front.
Let me add to your offensive line.
Lagway and Ball get all the pub, but those defensive and offensive fronts are the reason why that Florida down the stretch last year became one of the better teams in college football at the end of the year last year.
And they might be the all coming off the bus team, especially in the trenches. So I want you to listen to this. Tight end, 6'8", 270.
6'8"?
6'8", 270.
Yeah, they're
That's a
huge,
big
man.
boy.
Center, he's a puny guy, 6'5", 294. Let's get your weight up, center. Let's get to 300. Come on, buddy. Right guard, 6'6", 362.
Goodness.
Left guard, 6'3", short guy, short kings unite, 316 pounds. Right tackle, 6'5", 326. Left tackle, 6'6", 322.
And then you talk about freaking Lagway at 6'3", 240 something, and Jaden Ball at 6'1", like 238, 240 at tailback.
They're going to need 2 planes just to ship the freaking offensive line to wherever they're going.
Yeah, dude,
Those are massive human beings.
Hey, well, you know, like Hugh Freeze said, you got to have length and girth to play
Length
in
and
the SEC.
girth, baby. That's what
I think one of the other things for Florida this year that is a major upgrade is the fact that they're not going to try to start Graham Mertz for any games.
Is Billy Napier still in the hot seat?
Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll try to find a way to put him on it if they lose at LSU.
The dude was fired last year mid-season, and they somehow didn't lose his job.
Yeah,
There were so many rumors. They were releasing odds for the next head coach.
Yep.
Then, sure enough, he saved his job by winning down the stretch. There were plenty of people, Florida fans, that said that he was not going to be fired because they were going to basically ride out the DJ Lagway. That's at least what I saw, that they were going to at least give him a chance with DJ Lagway for like basically this upcoming year. And I mean, going 8-5 last year, definitely cooled his seat a little bit.
I'll tell you why he didn't get fired. He has
last one
experience.
Here, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is an incredibly interesting case because last year it felt like last year should have been the year for Ole Miss. When you talk about Jackson Dart, you talk about all the playmakers they had. This year, we've got Austin Simmons, which people are talking about Austin Simmons, but nobody really knows what Austin Simmons is going to be. I mean, it's another case where it's a new quarterback, a guy that we don't know anything about. Is there going to be anything other than Austin Simmons that can help Ole Miss get their case and possibly be, push themselves up to Lane Kiffin's first playoff team?
If there's someone that's going to pound the table for Austin Simmons, it's this guy right here. Come on, Lane. Come on, Lane.
Dude, he's. I mean, I think that, well, first off, the fact that you graduate high school and you're like 16 years old and he's already got like whatever degrees that he's got early on, but like he is about as smooth as a natural of a passer as you're going to see. And I hearing the stuff that like Ole Miss people are saying, that like people that cover the team and like watch practices and watch things, like just hearing what they're saying about him. I think he's the most talented. Now, does this mean he's going to be the best? No, he's got to go out and prove it. I think he's the most pure, raw, naturally talented QB that Lane Kiffin's coached. Obviously, I know Jackson Dart was incredible, and I know he was talented as well. But it's pure, raw talent. I think that Simmons is the best that they've had. But he's got to go out and prove it now and actually put the production out on the field. I just think, again, like until Lane Kiffin, since he's been at Ole Miss, he's had a top 5 offense every year, and he's had a top 3 offense in the SEC. He's had a top 5 offense in the SEC every year, and he's had a top 3 offense in the SEC 3 out of the last 4 years. And I agree with you, Jake, last year's team, because of what Pete Golding and all the people they brought into the transfer portal on that defense, like that defense being the number 2 ranked, like scoring defense in the country, number 1 in tackles for a loss, number 1 in sacks, number 2 rush defense in the country. Like every metric you want to look at for defense that shows you a good success rate, they were one of the top 5 defenses in the country last year. and they just found ways to stub their freaking toe in dumb games last year.
You mean losing to Kentucky doesn't mean you should make the playoff?
Exactly, man. But they this year, my question mark with them is, I mean, they're one of the least returning production on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep.
I'm not worried about their offense. I love them bringing in Deshaun Stribling from Oklahoma State's best receiver last year. He's a dude, and people are going to know him in a hurry. Trey Wallace, like I know everybody makes fun of Penn State's wide receivers. We did too last year, but he was actually their only really good wide receiver last year. Had about 800 yards receiving for Penn State last year. Had some really good moments. He's a guy too that you're going to look up this year and go, why couldn't he do that at Penn State last year? Why didn't they use him more?
You didn't have Lane Kiffin.
There you go. And so my question though is the defense, man. I think you're going to see more of what we saw a couple of years ago when Matt Corral was there at Ole Miss. Yep. That Ole Miss is going to have to win. I'm not going to say shootouts like every game. Like I don't think their defense is going to be trash. I don't think that at all. I think Pete Golding does a great job as a DC. But like they're just not going to be as dominant. There's no way that they're going to be as dominant as they were defensively last year because they lost so many of those really freaking good players that are now in the NFL. They've got a couple of dudes that are returning, but they don't have the same amount of just quality players along that entire defensive line, secondary, the whole 9 yards. They're not there anymore.
The one thing for Ole Miss, we talked a lot about like difficult schedules. When I look at Ole Miss, this is definitely one of the easier schedules.
Agreed.
Georgia State at Kentucky. I mean, Arkansas, people are talking about being possibly making a jump, but still remains to be seen. Tulane, I mean, that's 4 games that there's a real good chance they'll be 4-0, and then they get to host LSU.
Yep.
They get to host Washington State before you finally get to Georgia there in the middle of October.
What a strange placement of that Washington State game.
I know. I saw that too.
Play in October the 11th. Like when I was prepping for our show here tonight, like with y'all, I was like, what? I knew they played Wazoo, but I definitely didn't know that it was October the 11th.
Yeah. Such a strange one. And then they end the season there in the last 3 games are the Citadel, that'll be a win, Florida at home, and then Mississippi State. Really is that stretch of Georgia, Oklahoma, South Carolina that's really going to determine what their season's going to be.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they could be you talked about the best 7-3 team. There's a chance we could look at Ole Miss and be like, they're the worst 9-3 team.
I was going to say, I've actually got them going 9-3 right now. Because, again, I think it's more of their schedule. And I just think they're going to be a freaking handful offensively. But, like, they could lose at home to South Carolina, obviously. They could lose to Florida at home, obviously. Like, there is absolutely 7-5 on this schedule.
Oh, yeah.
I could easily find 7-5. I've got them right now 8-4, 9-3. 8-4, 9-3 is kind of where I've kind of leaning to. Probably more the 8-4 range is what I'm looking at with them. But I could see them going 9-3. But like
I said, they could be 9-3, and we could look here and go, yeah, Ole Miss is not in that 9-3 conversation for the college football playoff because they didn't play anybody. And like, unlike some of these other SEC teams, like they didn't have an absolute gauntlet. They had a 3-game middle of the season schedule that really determined, rather than some of these where it's like all of October, November, they've got world beater after world beater after world beater. That, yeah, I mean, if they beat LSU, I wouldn't be surprised. But also, if that game is like 65-55, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yep, but just like 2 years ago, that's exactly what that game was in Oxford 2 years ago. It was like 50-something to like Jaden Daniels' year at LSU. Yeah. Like they got, I think it was like 50-something, 40-something or something like that. It was like last one with the ball.
Yeah.
And what's wild about this schedule is too, though. Let's just say if Oklahoma and Florida end up being what like we think they can be. Then all of a sudden, this schedule does turn in to they could be that 7-5 that we were talking about a minute ago because you've got LSU, you've still got at Georgia, you've got at Oklahoma, and then you've got a Florida and a South Carolina. Like if South Carolina turns into being a really good team, or if Oklahoma and Florida turn into being really good, then it's one of those schedules that we looked at going into the year that didn't think it was going to be that tough, and then at the end of the year, you're like, dang, Ole Miss had a brutal schedule this year.
Absolutely. One final thing we want to do before we get you out of here is we always pick a team that we haven't talked about yet that we think is going to be above that win mark. So, Lance, give me your team that doesn't mean that they're going to be contending for a playoff spot. Doesn't mean they're going to be contending for the SEC championship, but a team that we haven't talked about that is like, hey, they're going to be better than this.
Texas A&M. Win total set at 7.5. I don't understand why that is. Like I've been telling Tyler, there's some of these win totals that I think that Vegas is feeling bad at the housing market, that mortgage rates are so high that they're building all those tall buildings still in Vegas, and they want us to be able to like build nicer homes and to be able to get more in the housing market. I don't understand why.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't understand why that win total is 7.5. I just don't. I think A&M is going to, again, Mike Elko, as long as he's there, he literally even said this, like after the year was over with, he said, like, I will literally do everything in my power to make sure that we are better defensively than we were at the end of this year. Because last year, Texas A&M went into that. People forget this. They went into that Lone Star Showdown. If they beat Texas, they're playing for the SEC championship.
Yep.
And like, they were that close to doing that. And so I just think that, again, year 2, Colin Klein, offensive coordinator, year 2 of this now being Marcel Reed's team. Like, he knows he's the guy. He's going all off season. Like, this is his offense. The offense is completely built around him. And he was solid, and then he just wasn't in the last couple of. But again, he was playing really good teams like South Carolina at South Carolina, Texas, one of the best defenses in the country. Like, he had played against really good teams. They've got one of the deepest stables of running backs in the entire country. Le'Veon Moss is back from injury.
Yeah.
They brought in, we all know how good KC Concepcion can be. They brought him in at wide receiver. Mario Craver was a burner at Mississippi State and is a solid wide receiver as well. They're Terry Bussey, who was a 5-star coming out of high school. They're going to be able to feature him more at the wide receiver position now too. Yeah, I just think this A&M team can. That's one of my favorite win total bets, to be honest with you. Like, it's my favorite in the SEC. I think they're going. I'm looking at it personally, thinking 9-3, but like, let's just say they go 8-4, it's still over that 7.5. But I think that they are a realistic at like plus. I think I was telling you about it earlier. Yeah, here it is. So LSU is plus 600. They're 4th in the SEC odds to win the SEC championship. I don't think there should be such a jump to go from plus 1,600 to Texas A&M is all the way down at plus 1,500. Like, I don't think there's that big of a difference between those teams as far as a chance to win the SEC.
Yeah, Texas A&M would have been one of mine. All the spots you hit, perfect. KC Concepcion, his freshman year at NC State, was one of the best playmakers in the country. You give them that at wide receiver, it's going to be very helpful for Marcel Reed, especially a guy who's not going to throw the ball downfield very much. They're a playmaker. He's a playmaker. So let's give him a playmaker to throw the football to.
Dude, Will, I can't believe I disrespected your position so much either. Dude, the Maroon Goons, they bring back their entire offensive line.
They do.
Literally their entire offensive line. They bring them all back.
And they're freaking studs.
So my bad to disrespect the Maroon Goons there. Yeah, that's also a huge reason why I like them this year.
That's all right. As long as you don't play for LSU, the offensive line very much matters. Tennessee. So, Tennessee has taken over a lot of people's headlines.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you why I still think they can be good. I have them as 8-4, and it's solely because of their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Boo Radley. I'm freaking kill Mockingbird. Boo Carter. Boo Carter's back. Jermod McCoy, that really threw me off calling him Boo Radley.
It's okay.
Jermod McCoy is probably one of the best defensive backs in the freaking country. Comes back. Boo Carter comes back from his sabbatical in California. No one knows what happened out there, but he's back. The offense has playmakers. What can Joey Aguilar do? If this top 5 SEC defense, top 3 SEC defense stays in that form, you've got Mike Matthews, who's a freaking 5-star dude. You've got Brandon Staley, who's a 4-star. You've got Chris Brazzell, who was one of my favorite wide receivers coming out of Oregon State last year, who's a really good football player. If Joey Aguilar can be average, they can go 8-4. I mean,
Nico was average last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they went 10-3. So think about that. Like, so they had one of the best defenses in the country. They didn't lose that much. They lost James Pierce Jr., who kind of disappeared towards the end of the season. Mm-hmm. So you take him away, you got 8 guys coming back. This defense is going to be one of the best in the country, let alone the SEC. So you let them keep you in the game. All Diego Aguilar, or Joey Aguilar has to do is not turn the ball over and over again. I mean, like you said, Nico was pretty average last year, and they were 10-3.
Yeah, there's a concern there about the quarterback position for sure because of when you lost your quarterback and when you got it started in there. That's my big concern, especially starting the season with Syracuse. Although Syracuse has their own changes as well, but that's not a game where you go in and you can test out all your quarterbacks and see who it's going to be.
I will say too, everyone is already slating as Joey Aguilar being the starter. I wouldn't be shocked if Jake Merklinger is the starter.
I was about to say that, Will. Yeah, I agree with you.
So in the spring game, he looked phenomenal. And he can run too. So I would not be shocked to see him run out there. It would suck for Joey Aguilar in the story arc of everything that happened. But don't be shocked if you see Jake Merklinger go out there against Syracuse.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add on Tennessee, their home road dichotomy underneath Josh Heupel has been pretty ridiculous. Like their money at home, and then like all their losses have been away. Like last year, they lost at Arkansas. You saw what they did in that Ohio State game in the playoff game. And so 2 years ago, they lost in the Swamp. They've only lost one home game in like the last 3 or 4 years, and that was to Georgia. We all remember, too, that special year that they had with Hendon Hooker. We saw them get absolutely blasted in that Spencer Rattler legacy game in Columbia.
Connor Stalions legacy game.
There you go. That's hilarious. So, like, when you look at their schedule, if they just if they can hold serve at home, like just say if they lose to Georgia at home and then they hold serve the rest of the games at home and lose the big games at Alabama and in the Swamp at Florida, that's a 9-3 football team.
Yeah.
This year. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me either, man. And too, the back against the wall, the us against the world mentality that team's going to have after like how the whole Nico situation went down, whoever's going to be QB. Be interesting to see how they do, man. And like I know y'all are big Fran Brown fans as well. I'm super intrigued to see them against Syracuse.
That's going to be a very fun game.
Yeah, it is. That's one of the more intriguing week 1 matchups that's not going to get as much publicity as the bigger matchups.
Absolutely. The team I have Missouri because Missouri returns 8 guys on defense, and the guys they bring in on offense are interesting, especially Bo Pribula. To me, is the highest floor, lowest ceiling kind of. I don't want to say highest floor being that like he can go, but the gap between his floor and ceiling, I think, is the greatest among most of these like new starters because. I think Bo Pribula has a chance to be a true dynamic dual threat. We saw him come in for Penn State against Wisconsin and help win that game. We've seen him in small spurts, but we haven't seen him as a starting quarterback. And I think the gap there, I mean, the floor, I think, is still fairly low. I don't think it's like a solid floor that you look at him and, your floor is like 3rd team all SEC. Like, I think his floor is getting benched. But I think his ceiling is like being in like the top 2nd or 3rd team all SEC as a quarterback. I could see him rushing for like 500 or 600 yards. I could see him throwing for 2,500, 3,000 yards this year. But I could also see him throwing for like 15 interceptions. So I really don't know what we're going to get. They bring in Ahmad Hardy, over from Louisiana. They bring in Damon Wilson from Georgia. You bring in Josiah Trotter from West Virginia. They bring in a lot of good guys here on the offensive and defensive side of the ball that I think are going to be good pieces. The problem is when I sit here, everything with Missouri is I think. There's not much like, I mean, I think we know the defense is probably going to be pretty solid overall. They were top 50 in rushing and passing last year. The defense will probably be pretty good again. The offense, though, everything is, I think. How does Hardy translate going from a G5 to a SEC program? How does Pribula translate from going from being a gadget quarterback to the starter? It's a lot of, I think, and, they get Central Arkansas, but then they get Kansas. Kansas is not going to be an easy game. You get South Carolina, you have Alabama, you have Auburn, you have Texas A&M, you have Oklahoma. But there are some easier games in there when Arkansas, Mississippi State, hopefully Vanderbilt is one of them. Maybe Auburn. Like, I think that I could see Missouri. I have Missouri at 8-4. It would not shock me if they're 9-3.
And the fact that they don't leave Como until like what is it? October 18th is the first
For
time
Auburn.
yeah, October 18th at Auburn is the first time that they actually leave Como for the season at all. It's crazy. And by the way, shout out to the fact that we haven't had the border war in a while. Like the fact that they're playing Kansas, like the backyard brawl, the border war. We need Bedlam back too. Like I know these super conferences, like, come on, man, give us these big time rivalry games back. That's what we need in college football. So I love the fact that the border war is back on September the 6th. That is a lot of hate in that rivalry.
Right.
I'm excited for it.
And before we log off, Jake, I just want to throw a little bit of love out to Auburn. If I think Auburn is similar to Bo Prabula, I think they have one of the highest ceilings, but they also have one of the lowest floors, and that's all because of Jackson Arnold. If Jackson Arnold comes in and is formidable with a guy like Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton out of Georgia Tech, that Auburn team could be scary because that defense is going to be nasty. The defensive backs were really young last year. They all come back. The defensive line was very sturdy. I think if Jackson Arnold, like I said, can come in and just be average, I think this is an 8-4 team, a 9-3 team, because that defense is going to keep them in just about every single game. I'm worried about the running back. I'm forgetting who they had last year, who was a freaking stud and a half. But
Jarquez Hunter.
Yes, Jarquez Hunter. I freaking loved watching him play football. But replacing him is going to be difficult. But if Jackson Arnold can throw the freaking football to those two guys, and Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton, this team could really, really, really at least ruin a bunch of people's seasons.
They're going to be really good around him, man. It's just really going to come down to what does Arnold look like. The receiving core, offensive line's better than it's been in a long time. Like you mentioned, defense is solid. It's just really going to come down to what does the quarterback do for them.
That's right.
Well, Lance, really appreciate you having on. I'll let you have a second here. Talk about Always Talking Ball and where people can always find you.
Yeah, guys. So again, appreciate y'all having me on. This was a blast. Again, always love chopping it up with you guys, talking some ball. But me and my boy Tyler Noe, we're Always Talking Ball podcast. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Apple and Spotify. We're also on X at Always Talk Ball on X. We're on Instagram, Always Talking Ball. We're on TikTok, Always Talking Ball. Come on there. Hey, we love the engagement. We love for you to just give it to us on any of our lists that we post or anything like that. We enjoy it. But hey, again, total respect for what you guys do, man. Jake, Will, y'all are awesome. One of my favorite follows, absolutely, on social media as well. So appreciate you fellas having me on, man. This was a blast.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Appreciate everybody joining. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Also, go check out Squad Blitz. We'll be talking more about that probably next week as we get into the season. I think we're down to 18 days, probably 17 days. Listen to this. 17 days till college football starts. Week 0. Be there soon enough, and we'll see everybody again next week.